The idea behind this project was to place LED strips along the 3 beams that I have going across the vaulted ceiling. I used FCOB 4000K LED light strips for this project. When I got the LEDs, I wanted to figure out how to wire them best and also see how bright they were. I wasn't entirely sure that doing lights on just the beams would be bright enough for the room. So after playing with the wiring for a little bit, I determined that they were probably bright enough. I thought about a few different ways to mount these LEDs. I know traditionally you would mount LEDs behind crown molding that you would lower to not touch the ceiling, and then the the light would bounce off of the ceiling and light up the room that way. Given that this was a vaulted ceiling, I didn't know exactly how to do that, especially with having them run along the beams and not along the peak of the vault. So instead, what I decided was to just get some aluminum LED channel with some diffusers, and if I could make sure that there was no spacings in the diffusers, then I could make it look like just standard lights that were up there. Not much different than if you would have canned lights installed. Luckily, this worked out very well. I think the results came out exactly like I was hoping. I just took the aluminum track and screwed it directly to the molding on the beam that was already there. I made sure to keep the track as straight as possible. Once all the track was installed, I took 2 LED strips per beam and used the adhesive backing on the LED strips to put them inside of the aluminum channel. I then connected both of those LED strips together so that that one beam section could be connected to another beam section. Once all the LEDs were installed in the channels, I came back and put the diffuser on top. I made sure to overlap the diffuser between 2 different aluminum strips. That way, there was no gap between each aluminum section. This was a bit tricky, trying to connect the diffuser between both aluminum tracks. If they weren't lined up perfectly, I had to convince the diffuser to stay in the track. Ultimately, I was able to get it in. Most of them went in fine. There was a couple that gave me a little bit of problems. My first thought to get the wiring of the LED strips down to the plug was to just run them through the wall. I was unable to run the wires down the wall. So instead of running them through the attic, I simply got some cable track and I ran it along the peak of the vaulted ceiling and down the back wall of the room and then along the baseboard to be able to plug it into the outlet that was controlled by the light switch. This isn't the most elegant solution, given that the wall's white, the ceiling's white, and it wasn't thick cable that I was running. I think it turned out okay. I don't tend to stare at my ceiling, so I don't really even notice it. I used an exterior electrical box, the smallest exterior electrical box I could find that had a cover on it. I spray painted that white to help with blending into the wall. I connected all 3 beam sections together and then connected that to the controller. I then ran the power cable from the controller down the wall and across the baseboard to the power unit that eventually got plugged into the outlet. I had to take off the molding around the beams to get the wires to wrap around each beam. I went to the store to try and find replacement molding, and after sticker shock, I realized I could just make it myself. I had some leftover walnut from a separate project. I put a heavy roundover on it and then set my table saw blade to 45 to create a chamfer on the back of the molding so that the wire could fit behind it. I ended up having to trim the molding even further because I made it too big the first time. Once I got it to roughly the same size, I cut it to length and nailed it to the beams. With the chamfer on the back, it allowed a channel for the wire to go in and not be pinched. Overall, this was an amazing upgrade to the room. It's much more pleasurable to be in this room at night with company without feeling like you're in a dungeon or you can't see anything. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Most of you watching this video are not subscribed, so if you like what you saw, please subscribe, share it with friends, family, and I will see you guys on the next one.